Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Daniel. I'm a counselor, speaker, and author. I'm also founder of Wounds to Scars, where we work with adult survivors of childhood trauma and women who experience abuse. We do that through conferences, retreats, and online courses. At the end of this video, I'm going to tell you about our next conference, March 25 to 27. I'm going to share a little bit about it. But for the next couple of videos, I'm going to be answering questions that was asked by the people in our community. And today's question is, how long does it take to heal from trauma? I think that's an excellent question. So I'm going to be looking down sometimes just so that I am keeping current with my notes and the things that I'm saying. First, I'm going to read a definition of what trauma is according to the American Psychological Association. Okay. And trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. Immediately after the event, shock and denial are typical. Immediately after the event, shock and denial are typical long-term reactions, including unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical symptoms like headaches or nausea. So it's really important that we read that, and that's why we do what we do, because healing is such a journey, and it's a different journey for everyone. And so as I go into this around how long does it take, I really want you to bear in mind that everybody's different. People are different. You and I are different, and therefore healing will differ for everyone. However, what I'd like you to know is that everyone can heal. That's the basis. That's why I do what I do. That's why my colleagues do what they do. We believe healing is possible for everyone. However, the journey is going to be different for everyone. So somebody might experience sexual trauma and you experience sexual trauma and they heal in a year, 2 years, and 5 years in, you feel like you've not healed yet. But I want you to know that don't give up. Everything counts. There's a supermarket here in the UK that has this slogan that says, every little helps. It's the same thing when we come into healing. I'm going to go into that a little bit. So people who experience trauma tend to feel unsafe in their bodies. So, because remember the definition that I read about the shock and long-term unpredictable reactions like flashbacks and sometimes nightmares, and all of these things are happening. People tend to feel unsafe in their bodies, and regaining a sense of safety will take time, and this time might differ for everyone. So one of the things we work to do is to help people to regain a sense of safety in their bodies. And that's why it needs a professional. It needs somebody who is experienced, who know what they're doing, to help you work through the effects of your trauma. And so, and that's why prayer is one coping mechanism. It can't be all that you do. And I talked about prayer here recently, that if you're praying, it's also important to be open to hearing what the Lord is telling you to do and be prepared to act on that, because he loves you and he wants you to heal. He wants you to regain a sense of safety in your body. He wants you to learn how to stabilize and how to put coping mechanisms in practice, so that when you are triggered with a flashback or a memory or a nightmare, you have the tools to put in place that will help yourself to move forward. Okay, so regain a sense of safety will take time for everyone, because everyone is different. For some, it might take weeks. For some, it might take months. And for some, it might even take years. And that's why I say, if you are somebody who's been on your journey for 5 years, don't despair and don't give up, because every part of that journey, every time you put one piece of the puzzle in place, every time you apply a coping mechanism that widens your window of tolerance, you are doing the work of healing. So what's important is that you consistently walk the journey. So even though it might take weeks for some, months for some, and years for some, what's important is that you consistently walk that journey of healing. So how long does it take to heal? It's important that we consistently walk that journey of healing. So because I say years doesn't mean that yours will take years. Doesn't mean that your trauma will take years to heal. What's important is that to know is that healing is a journey. If you're going, say, for example, if you're going from your house to town, and if you set off and you encounter roadblocks, road closures, and have to wait in traffic for hours, does it mean that you haven't left home? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you've not traveled the distance that you've traveled. You have traveled, though you've encountered roadblocks and road closures and you had to wait in traffic, you left home still. And what's important to know is that I'm not at home wishing that I was in town. I'm actually on my way to town. And so um, you can't ever step off that journey. Healing is similar. Healing is similar because it might take you a years or a couple months. Every step that you take in the direction of healing is important. So every group you attend, every book you read, every podcast you listen to, every hour of therapy that you do, every prayer group that you attend, every Bible study that you do specifically designed around healing or getting to know yourself better or getting to know God better, every cry you cry, everything you do in that direction counts. And so what I want, and I always say sometimes healing is not a destination, it's a journey. And we experience different things along that journey. And what's also important is that you celebrate each stage of that journey. Sometimes people, when they come into therapy or listen to one of my videos like this, or somebody else, they want to think, I just want to go, want to get it over with, want to move on with my life. I completely understand that. I totally understand. I just want to go start, I want to go end, I want to move on. However, healing is a journey, especially for those of us who experience trauma in those early stages in life. There's so many places, especially when we're dealing with it in adult life, where it's impacting, that it's going to take, personal development never ends, growth never ends, sanctification is the work of a lifetime. So we're always going to be having something to work through, some understanding, some deeper understanding of self that you have discovered, that you want to share with your partner, that you want to share with your children, that you want to share with your friends, that you want to act out in your life when you have this deeper level of understanding of self. So that's another layer. And it's important because when you understand that layer and you really come to acceptance of that layer and you settle into that place and you want to enjoy that place. So you're now learning how to live in this new you, this new place, this new discovery that you have discovered. And as you are sharing that discovery with the people with you, that will take some time to share that new discovery of self as you are learning and deepening your understanding of your coping mechanism, deepening on your understanding of your love language, of your emotional needs. And you're going, oh, wow, I didn't even know that I like that. But now that I'm discovering more about myself, I'm discovering that I actually like this. So what I encourage that you enjoy every stage of the healing journey. Every phase that you're in is important. So we might want to look at the stage where the nightmares end, or the flashbacks are not so sharp anymore, or the memories are not so acute. When I remember it, it doesn't have any pain. I want to get to that place. But you can't miss all the other phases on that journey. When you didn't have nightmares for 2 weeks in a row, celebrate that. You didn't have nightmares for 2 nights in a row, celebrate that. Celebrate the fact that you learned something in the group for sexual trauma or abandonment or domestic abuse or whichever the trauma is. You learned something from a book and you put it into practice. Celebrate that. Celebrate that the coping mechanisms that you once used, you don't use them as often anymore. That's healing too. That's part of the journey. So celebrate each stage of the journey that you're on, and it adds up to widening your window of tolerance. So you're able to put coping mechanisms in here and you're creating distance between your trigger and your automatic response. And that's really how healing works, because everything works together for your ultimate recovery. Everything works together for your ultimate recovery. So what's important, as I say, is that you act on every bit of information that you are learning, put it into practice, because that's how the ultimate healing will come together. When you put every bit of information that you've learned into practice, that's how it all comes together. However, healing doesn't mean that you'll be free from post-trauma stress and memories or flashbacks. I couldn't tell you that means that, but what's important is that you might experience a flashback, but it doesn't devastate you and destabilize you. You can manage it because you're putting coping mechanisms in place. That's what that will mean. It doesn't mean that you'll never have a memory. It just means that when you have the memory, you'll be able to manage because you're putting coping mechanisms in place. And I can tell you that as you do that and as you celebrate that, the joy that you experience, the strength that you experience, the courage that you experience, all of it just adds together, and you can start to see your progress and you can start to see how you're growing. You're growing. Healing means that you have tools to use in the times when you receive those flashbacks and when you receive those memories. That's what healing means. And the journey happens as you consistently apply the tools that you learn to dealing with flashbacks, dealing with memories, and dealing with all the things that the post-trauma stress. It means applying the tools to help you to manage the destabilization that happens in your body. They help in your body and your nervous system, helping your nervous system to be able to regulate and to relax when it's stressed. Knowing how to locate stress in your body, what the triggers are, how to locate it in your body, and what to apply, what to respond with when you are frustrated, when you're angry, when you're stressed, when you're upset, when you're annoyed, and what to apply in order to move through that phase. It includes knowing what to apply when you are triggered, understanding that trigger and what you respond with when you're triggered. So lots of people are triggered, they become angry, frustrated, all of those are normal. Some people shut down, numb, close it off, unable to relate. You might want to, part of your healing journey might want to learn how to feel again. You might want to learn how to feel sadness and locate it in your body. You might want to be able to identify joy, because when we are numb, when we shut down and close off, we can't close off negative emotions and experience positive ones. So if you're not allowing yourself to experience the sadness and the anger and the frustration around being triggered because of post-traumatic memories, you won't be able to experience joy and contentment and peace and laughter and just be in the moment and be present. So we have to be able to, part of healing is the ability to feel what we feel and be with what we feel. Now, a lot of times we are afraid to be in with what we feel. Sometimes we feel these feelings are going to overwhelm me and they're going to take over and I won't be able to cope. That's not true. That's what the feelings are telling you. Feelings are real and they come to teach us, but what they say is not always true. So we want to learn which one's true and what do I do? And that's why it's important to know what to respond with when we're triggered. So when I'm feeling these things, what are they? What do they mean? Where do they come from? What do I respond with these feelings? And when I respond, what happens next? What you'll find is, as you learn how to respond appropriately to when you're triggered. So for example, you're frustrated and you're angry and you're feeling it in your chest and you can't breathe and your palms are sweaty and you're just not knowing what to do with yourself. We want to respond with movement at those times. We want to, I like to say to people, just get up and do some jumping jacks. We want to do things that get the heart rate to go up in a good way, not in the way when you're panicked or when you're anxious or frustrated or angry. We want it to go up in a good way, because what we want to do is to work off those stress hormones that was dumped in your body when you were triggered and the anger and all of those things were happening. We want to respond with movement so we can work that out the body. We can get the nervous system relaxed again. We can get our bodies back in a place where we can digest food. We can breathe normally, where our joints are not jelly, or our bodies are not tense. We want to get our bodies relaxed, because when our bodies are relaxed, then our mind, our frontal lobe is clear and accessible. That means we're not in the emotional brain anymore. And it's in that place where we can think, we can reason, we can make good decisions. That's the place where we pray, we ask for help, we apply the tools. That's the place it happens. So when you apply the tools consistently over time, your body now, you're training your body, you're teaching it. My nervous system, when I'm upset, this is what I do. This is what I'm going to respond with. So that's what's important.